Hello, this is the sermon for Christmas Eve, the later service at 8 o'clock, and the text is Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 20. The Christmas story in Luke's Gospel has some sharp edges that we are likely to miss, because for us, the edges have been worn off. For one, we don't share the social context of the Mediterranean world of late antiquity. For another, familiarity with the story from hearing it year after year tends to dull the impact the story might have on us. Finally, in our culture, the Christmas story has been so wrapped in a blanket of Hallmark-style sentimentality that it is practically suffocating. Consider the reason why Joseph and Mary traveled to Bethlehem from Nazareth. The story says, "In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration, and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child." These are the first 5 verses of the second chapter of Luke's Gospel, which means that they amount to a quarter of the Christmas story. The registration, then, is an important part of the Christmas story, but to my knowledge, not a single Christmas carol or Christmas song or Christmas storybook for children ever mentions it. Little wonder it doesn't register. Perhaps one reason why the registration gets such short shrift is because it seems to us to be such a boring detail. The registration to which the Christmas story refers was a census, and for us, completing a census for the federal government every few years is a form of drudgery. It is fair to ask, who cares that Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem in order to fill out a census? But if we are to do justice to the Christmas story as it has actually been written, however, we do have to reckon with the registration. To start with, it is undertaken at the command of the Roman emperor, in those days Augustus, whose reign heralded the end of civil war that had troubled Rome for decades and instituted what imperial propaganda called the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. What the emperor commands, his subjects, including Joseph and Mary, do. The other thing to note is that the census would have been undertaken for the purpose of ensuring efficient tax collection and military proscription in a province. That is, the census would have been undertaken in order for Rome to determine how much tax income it could soak from its provincial subjects. In other words, the registration is an act of oppression. In the Christmas story as we have it, the census looms large since it is mentioned 4 times in the space of 5 verses. That is, Luke's Gospel emphasizes that Joseph and Mary count among the provincials subject to the oppressive rule of Rome, a fact that for obvious reasons is blatantly ignored when the Christmas story is viewed through the lens of Hallmark-style sentimentality. If all Christmas is about is the special birth of a special baby, we don't want to hear the icky parts. So the political oppression manifested in the Christmas story is the sharp edge that is too often blunted. But when we acknowledge it, we find that it gives to the Christmas story new meaning. Among the parts of the Christmas story that have new meaning once we acknowledge the importance to the story of the registration as an act of oppression is the declaration of the angel. Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger. We ascribe the titles Savior and Lord to Jesus as a matter of course, almost without thinking. But in Jesus' day, these titles were ascribed by imperial propaganda to the emperor. What is going on, which we tend to miss, is that the angel is saying that the titles of Savior and Lord properly belong to a child born in the humblest of circumstances, rather than to the most powerful man in the world. We tend not to understand how revolutionary the angel's claims about Jesus really are. The overturning of the social order on display here is in keeping with the rest of Luke's Gospel, such as in Mary's song of praise, in which she sings, God has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. The birth of Jesus is a sign that the way things are is not how they have to be. The way things are is not how they have to be. The Christmas story, far from being sentimental, acknowledges how the powerful now lord it over the weak, but says that, in Jesus, God is overturning the old social order and replacing it with one in which all people are truly free. Another way of looking at it is to say that Jesus was born into a situation of oppression in order to show that there is no circumstance beyond the reach of God's care and concern. You and I may not consider ourselves to be oppressed, but we all know what it is like to live in a world in which the powerful lord it over the weak, which means that the Christmas story is good news for us too. The Christmas story is good news, even for us, because it says that, whatever difficulties we may be facing, God in Jesus has also faced difficulty. And so God truly knows what we are going through. The Christmas story says that because we belong to God, we are truly free, no matter how we are treated in the present social order. The Christmas story says that because Jesus was born in great humility, there is no one beyond the reach of the salvation that Jesus brings. The sharp edges of the Christmas story can be painful when we genuinely pay attention to them, like bumping your funny bone against a table. But when we do pay them heed, we discover how the birth of Jesus truly is, as the angel proclaims, good news of great joy for all the people.